Central RCQ. My name is Adam. I'm joined here with Chase.
It's good to see everyone again. And we're just hopping right into the action. Looks like our players are underway. We've got Chaz Hinkle playing mono green devotion against Adam Bruce playing black red midrange. And we're off to the races. We've got Atlanta Ralph's who's been Fatal Push and Wolfwell Haven onto our first forest. So Blood Type Harvester here for Adam. Looks like he's going to make a blood token and pass the turn. I know that there's been a lot of talk about Liliana changing the dynamic. How do you feel? Have you played much of this matchup on either side?
I have not gotten a chance to yet. I've been mainly playing some Explorer. Haven't had a chance to play much Pioneer, but I've been playing with like a Jund build on Arena, and I've been enjoying Liliana in that build. But yeah,
it's interesting to me because like I know that the black red deck is like built in such a way that it lines up particularly well and a lot of the interaction points, but green still has some of these hands that are just like so ridiculously crazy.
Yes.
And here we see Chaz with the line that I actually like a lot in my games, which is fourth mana source Karn, kill the blood token. So this way, future blood type harvesters aren't going to threaten to kill old growth trolls. There's no rummaging action. We don't really know what we want to wish for yet, so the Karn's going to live through this attack here. And now Adam's in a tough spot where he has to decide if it's worth trying to kill this Karn with combat damage or if he just needs to start pressuring in life total. And that's one of the tension points that makes the matchup a little tough for the black red deck, is when they don't have some of their more premium hands, they have to make choices like that are hard. It looks like he's going to go for 3 at the Karn here, and we'll see which 3-drop of choice he decides to follow up with. Which of his 27 3-drops? It looks like it's not a 3-drop. It's just going to be a stomp to stop the Karn from wishing. To putting a Bone Crusher on Adventure, and we're going to hang our last minute, which is interesting. As one of the risks of plussing the Karn here is that you might not get to wish.
For sure.
But I feel like it's going to be a pretty good turn, because now you're going to get to plus your Karn to 2, deploy some sort of threat. It looks like a Temple Garden into play, untapped for Chaz, putting him down to 18.
Yes. You have an Archon, looks like. Not Archon.
A Cavalier of Thorns.
Cavalier.
Casually.
Wow.
Just going to look at some cards, hopefully find some lands to put into play. I'll seed one. So we're going to take a Temple Garden tapped.
I think the new challenge for the day is for me to name a magic card correctly. I think that's if you have that on your bingo card,
difficulty level impossible for sure.
So if you have that on your bingo card. All right.
So I don't see a Storm the Festival getting milled over, but it looks like we got another Temple Garden into play tapped. Karn's going to go up to 2 here. We're going to pass back. And this is another spot where if Adam doesn't have a good way to kill the Cavalier, now the Karn's going to live, which makes the play from last turn feel pretty bad. So hopefully he has a removal spell here, either in the form of a Liliana or a Dreadbore or something. And there's nothing super appealing to get back here.
So I can see a Liliana in the hand, so we'll see if that.
Yeah, we'll see if that's the choice or not. Yeah. The upside of killing the Cav now is that the graveyard is not that full yet. Looks like we're either going to get an Oath of Nissa or an Old Growth Troll back. So looks like we are going to go to Liliana.
Yep, looks like that's what Adam agrees with.
And looks like we're going to go with an Oath. Get some card selection. Karn's going to die. And it's going to come down to what's in Chaz's hand and what he can find off this Oath. I mean, he's not under a lot of pressure, so he has some time, but he's going to start losing all of his cards to Liliana.
Forest Elf, Nykthos.
Second Nykthos. Second Nykthos potentially quite good, but likely we're going to find a card that's going to be discarded to Liliana here, if I had to guess.
That would make sense, depending on what's in the hand, but
obviously, that's all he's going to be the context. We're going to take a Forest. Yeah, it means he's going to play it this turn more than likely.
It's like another
Haven here to no cards, and we're going to activate we're going to activate all of our mana and sack one of the Havens and make a 2/2.
Okay.
So I mean, that's if that's all of the cards we have left. It looks like Adam's in a pretty good spot to take over the game here. Liliana's going to keep Chaz from stockpiling any cards in his hand, and
looks like he has about 4 right now. Yeah.
Well, and this Bone Crusher is going to come off Adventure, going to the ground, and we're going to see a series of good top decks to keep this game going.
Absolutely.
The one upside is, of course, this Wolf's going to at least either hold back or trade for the Blood Type Harvester or another spell, and that means that Chaz isn't dying anytime soon. So we see a Sheoldred though. the Apocalypse, another Dominaria United card people are pretty excited about. I know we didn't really talk about it at the beginning of the show, but a very high impact card to these black decks.
Yes.
Kind of surprisingly impactful. I think some people were excited when it came out, but other people were not sure it was going to be that good. it's, I don't know.
I believe when the card was spoiled, I heard a lot of Commander Legends memes, as always, when they see.
Yeah, well, because the last couple of Praetors have been pretty okay, not great.
Yeah,
and or like very situationally good. So like
yeah.
Vorinclex is good with sagas and planeswalkers, but like bad on other spots or whatever.
Mhm.
So this one is like really good in a lot of applications, and it hit this really weird point on release weekend where there weren't a lot of main deck removal spells that were killing it.
Yeah.
And that makes it much more appealing the more turns you stick around, obviously. Yeah, so drawing his card, Chaz, it goes down to 16. Looks like he drew a land, makes another wolf, and passes the turn back. And Adam's going to go to 22 here on his draw step from the shoulder. And no Liliana activation means we're all spells. We're not going to need to set up another edict for a while. Graveyard Trespasser.
Graveyard Trespasser here.
Imagine we're going to get rid of the Karn.
Yeah, I'll probably find the Karn.
Maybe the Troll. We'll see. It's going to go with the Troll. So that's going to put Shaz down to 15 and Adam to 23.
We're in daytime.
My least favorite mechanic in all of Pioneer. And then here's a Blood Type Harvester, make another blood token. We'll see if one of these wolves get killed. We're going to plus with no cards. Looks like we will trade for a wolf. And, get in for 4 with Children, putting Chaz all the way down to 11. And on his draw step, he's going to go to 9. So this is probably going to have to be a storm or bust kind of turn. We'll see. See if he can make the magic happen. It looked like a spell, but it could be one of these Temple Gardens. I didn't get a good look at it. It looks like it is in fact storm or bust. Well, let's see how good this Storm of Vestal ends up being. I really I enjoy playing the green deck.
Oh wow.
This one looks like it's going to be some good ones. It might not be enough though, because he's pretty far behind on the board and his life total is pretty low.
It's like Karn Oath. Or can you get Oath? No, you can only get creatures.
You can get any permanent.
Any permanent card.
Any permanent card, mana value 5 or less.
You can tell I play this deck a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. So it looks like we're going Karn Oath. And we're going to get an Oath trigger with 1 available mana. So this is going to kill the blood token probably, and then hopefully we can find a chump blocker. Another one. Because any card that we can't cast this turn is going to get discarded to Liliana.
Yeah.
So
looks like another storm.
So just take a land. I guess the land's fine because it gets into the flashback storm, but the Graveyard Trespasser is probably going to make that not align if Adam knows what he's doing. So a tap land.
So we're 2/2 wolf.
And so next turn, if we have Edict plus combat, that should be lethal.
Does appear that way.
It does appear that's going to be the case. Trying to figure out what we're doing with Karn, if we're going to go to 1-drop or not. I don't think there's any 1-drops in his sideboard that change this. I'm looking over here. We can get a Citadel. We've already played a land this turn. Tormod's Crypt doesn't do anything. Pithing Needle doesn't change. Pithing Needle lets us block. We can Needle the Liliana. And then we block and we take 7 and go to 2. And then we die when we draw our card. Oh, Portable Hole. Okay, so we can take Portable Hole and we can pull the Blood Tithe Harvester.
Okay.
And then I think we're still dead because of the Shieldred.
Yes.
If we Edict this turn. But we'll see if they find it. It is still daytime correctly, which is nice.
At least we have the token this round.
Yeah, that's it's an interesting design decision. For sure. It's like we're gonna rummage our card away. You can't do that because there's a Karn in play, obviously. Frankly, maybe he doesn't see the Edict's lethal. He does not see it's lethal. That's okay. We're gonna attack. We're gonna remove the storm. This is probably gonna win either way because even after a chump block here. Oh, he's attacking Karn. And now we're gonna rummage. I don't know what percentage of that damage went to the face or not. I believe they probably both went at Karn based on no blocks.
Yeah.
So I believe Chaz is still at 9. Rummage our Haunted Ridge away after the Karn got killed. Yep, that's fine. Nine to 23 is the accurate life total, so it's both attacked Karn. And then we're going to cast the Bone Crusher from Adventure. Sounds good. And it's Chaz's turn. He's going to get 1 more draw step here. going to 7. And it's an oath. That's not what we're looking for. We kind of needed another storm here, I think. But maybe we can hit a sequence of Cavalier into stuff. And that's not what we saw. So we're going to end up going to game 2 here.
Yep.
Interesting decision. I think that if I had to guess, Adam just missed that he was at 9 and that it was lethal to let him draw the card off the shoulder.
Yeah.
So, but
And this is those like
it probably doesn't matter. Like I said, we're like there's unless he draws a storm there and his storm has to be insanely good. I like the games that
for sure. And that's definitely one of those decisions you guys have talked. We've all been talking about earlier. With these black-red decks, sequencing your effects and finding those lethal lines is very important.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's just small decisions there. I mean, like obviously you don't want to Edict a Wolf, but in this case, it ends the game, so it's probably probably what do you want to do. All right, I'm gonna talk about sideboarding. As far as Chaz, we've got a bunch of Karn Wish targets and 2 Voracious Hydra. If I recall correctly, Hydra's not that great here. We might see him boarded anyway though, because we're worried about Kalidas and cut a Caryatid and some other mediocre card. As far as what he can get with his Karn, he's got an Eskus Chariot, a Shadow Spear, a Portable Hole, a Glass Casket, a Meteor Golem, a God Pharaoh Statue, a Sky Sovereign Council Flagship, the Chain Veil, Pestilent Cauldron, Reckoner Bankbuster, Pithing Needle, Darksteel Citadel, and Tormod's Crypt.
It's a lot of artifacts.
A lot of artifacts. As far as Adam over here, we've got a sideboard of 1 Abrade, 1 Chandra, Torch of Defiance, 1 Duress, 1 Epic Downfall, 2 Extinction Event, 3 Go Blank, 1 Hidetsugu Consumes All, 1 Invoke Despair, 1 Kalidas Trader of Get, 1 Kolaghan's Command, 1 Rending Volley, and 1 Unlicensed Hearse. I believe that we want the Epic Downfall, the 2 Extinction Events, and the Go Blanks. I like Go Blank in this matchup from the black side, although I'm insane. And then the Kalidas and the Invoke Despair. And then we're just going to trim our combination of interactive spells that are not the best in our deck and hopefully get our Graveyard Trespassers out of there. We'll see. That's always the question.
Any thoughts on the Abrade as well?
It's fine. I
Probably
mean, like
not. I mean,
it might be a side grade for certain other cards in the main deck. I mean, we have
It doesn't kill Troll, but it does.
It does kill the artifacts that you get with Karn.
Yeah.
Like, that matters sometimes, and like it does kill mana creatures. You're on the draw, so it's like less appealing. Duress also a card I've seen people boarded in this matchup. The non-creature cards are generally the important cards, but it's probably less good on the draw because Chaz is really looking to have a curve out hand, and you don't really want to cast Duress on turn 1
for sure
when they're doing that. So I would imagine the Croxa and some combination of the Graveyard Trespassers are going to come out, and we're going to see some combination of Epic Downfall, Extinction Event, and Friends come in.
That makes sense.
But in a main deck, we have a 3-1 split on Kalidas versus Sheoldred. So we did make room to have. I know some players they're sold. They're 4 Sheoldred gamers, but
yeah,
looks like Adam's a little bit more prepared for this matchup in particular, where Kalidas tends to shine.
Yes.
So.
That Sheoldred card's pretty good.
It is pretty good. Yeah.
And
I will say is a weird spot that game where I think if the Trespasser had been like the Bone Crusher Giant getting cast, I think Chaz was in an okay spot because he would have gotten to flashback his second Storm and could have made maybe different choices on the first Storm. But that's how the matchup generally plays out. Is generally the black red deck interacts with you, trades all your cards down. You as the green deck are just trying to set up to get yourself either like one piece away from winning, you've got to find it, or you're trying to assemble a pressure plan because they stumbled in interacting with you. So it just depends. But we're going to see our opening hands here. It looks like we got Double Oath, Llanowar Elves, Temple Garden, Wolful Haven Karn, and Old Growth Troll. So it's a 1-lander with Double Oath.
And
I think it's a keep. Because if your Dirk gets killed, you have the top 4 cards to find a second land. You have an Oath to play. If you find your second land right away, you get the Haven right away. And I think it's really hard. The other thing I'll say for the green decks is it's very hard to mulligan in this matchup if you have a hand that's like anywhere close to a range of acceptable, because you really need all of your cards because they're really aggressively trying to trade all of the cards down, even more so than they were before. So starting on fewer cards is much more detrimental than it's been in the past. But looks like Chaz agrees that that hand's a keep. Be interesting to see if there's a turn 1 interactive spell. That's, I think, other than some parts in the middle of the game where the last couple of cards are getting traded off, the first turn is really important in this matchup. You know, do they have the mana creature? Do they have the answer for the mana creature? Can they use the payoff if the mana creature lives? And this is a hand that looks pretty good for chess. Technically, he's missing a land, so even if he's untapped the elf, it's possible his best play is still just to cast a Wolful Haven and that's it.
Yeah.
But, you know, Adam going to 6 says keep. We have a shock down to 18, and the Llanowar Elves
Does fine.
comes into play. It's in there. Got a Hive into Fatal Push. So we got the answer.
So it's another elf.
Another elf, but we're going to lean on the Oath, try to find a green source. There's a
So
forest.
there's at least one.
And some stuff that we don't care about.
It's
Because they're not
still
forests. We're going to play that forest and probably just this other elf.
Yep.
And this is pretty scary here because killing this elf is normally not that appealing.
Yeah.
Because normally they're going to have access to their mana next turn anyway. They can start playing trolls. They can start doing other stuff. But here, Chaz doesn't have the land. Obviously, we don't know that. So killing this elf actually would have prevented the troll from coming down.
Yep.
But we'll see if that's even the line. We drew as a Kiora was drawn. This turn.
Huh.
So let's just replay the Oath. Kiora minus. Replay another Oath. If we find our land. Probably didn't find a land if we're thinking. Cavalier. That's interesting. I think there was a troll in there that I might have taken over the Cav.
Believe.
Also, the elf didn't get pushed again in the end step. Adam had a push in his hand and didn't push the elf after our opponent didn't play third land. Very interesting.
Not quite sure.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think you're supposed to do it because, especially if they hit Cav, because then they definitely can't cast Cavalier next turn. And like your push is going to start to lose value. Here we have a Dreadbore on the Kiora, and we're going to end up pushing the elf on our turn. So it costs us a mana, which probably doesn't matter. You want to take a draw step for an extra thing.
As long as there's another push in the hand, which I'm not sure if there is.
Yeah, I mean, we'll find out shortly. Wolful Haven.
Yep.
So next turn, the trolls are going to start coming down.
Yep.
And here's a Graveyard Trespasser, removing Llanowar Elves. Sorry, Elvish Mystic. My apologies. Both players going to 19.
Yep.
Yeah, my intuition was casting the Kiora was better, but I think the way that the hand set played out, it might have been better to run out a troll instead of the previous turn.
Yeah.
It's really hard. It's really hard to figure that out in a lot of spots. But here comes a troll, and we found a lair. So we're now a land away from Cav.
Play the Cav, yeah.
And currently the Trespassers getting blocked, which is good. Also, if your troll gets killed, you can catch Cavalier. So
yeah.
Pretty good spot to be in. I mean, like honestly, like we're not on the board, but we have a lot of backable cards, and we haven't gotten discard spell yet. Looks like we're going to go to nighttime with Urborg Pass from Adam, and take a draw step. So we did not find a land. If I was Adam, I would offer the trade, and if my opponent blocks, then we get to cast Cavalier in our post combat. And if he doesn't block, we'll just play another troll.
Thinking it through here.
Yeah. Trying to figure out what Adam would have in his hand where this is the right play. I assume if you do this, you have to block, because I don't think you can start letting your life total get pressured. Like, your opponent has all spells, right? So
Yeah.
and one of them's Cavalier. So trading is like really tough, but presumably that's right if you're doing this, because now you're just gonna have another troll come down. And
Which I believe we knew about the first one.
yeah.
The Storm the Festivals.
There's a storm and
or festivities. Which one
a
it is?
Cavalier and a Karn. All right, looks like end step we're gonna channel Sokens on to make 2 1/1s. Interesting. All right, it is still nighttime. Got that right. Every time it's correct, it makes me happy.
That's good. I've definitely seen it where it is not maintained.
Instead, definitely is. Yeah, this looks like a really tough spot for Adam though, because last turn our best play was pass, transform our guy, don't block, and then channel Sokens on.
Yeah.
And
It's a lot
we
of-
know our opponent's on 3 spells. So yeah.
It's like we have some lands in the hand, probably.
Yeah.
I don't think we're firing anything up here.
Could fire up the hive and get in because it won't be blockable. Yeah. But you know, you're at 15, opponent's at 19. You're probably not going to want to block again next turn. So I don't know how productive that is to raise. I mean, it's probably better than not spending your mana, but I don't. You could have innocence or whatever. So true for turn. And again, if we didn't draw a land, I would just attack with my guys.
Looks like we have a Teferi
And
also.
you're Teferi for sure. Interesting. So we play Teferi and plus untapping one of our lands and tapping the thing. Okay. Looks like we're just gonna go with one attack. We want to be able to hold up to block this turn. Makes sense. We're gonna go to 11. And then Teferi is going to get cast because we have an oath in play. So we can spend our green mana to cast our blue white planeswalker. And then we're going to untap our Wolful Haven land and our old growth troll that attacked. We're going to gain 2 life going to 21. And yeah, might have want to attack with both. It's a little risky if your opponent has a removal spell for the troll because then they can maybe kill Teferi, but I think they are not likely to do that given the way they've sequenced this. Channel Takanuma end of turn. Looks like we're choosing between a Blood Tithe Harvester and a Graveyard Trespasser as the things to return to our hand.
It does look correct.
Looks like we're going with the Harvester. Yeah.
Looks like there's some decisions to be had here by Adam.
Gonna play our Blood Tithe. Get our blood token.
And then are we going back to daytime?
Yeah, that is the tough part. You have to recover the board by playing spells, but you don't want to play 2 spells on your turn because then you lose your 4/4 and one of your like better blockers. So, also, letting him untap with Teferi is like very risky.
Okay.
So we found the Liliana. That's going to resolve, and I think that. What would you do here? Would you plus or would you edict?
Oh, it's tough. If we know about the storm, I think we just that's the thing. Either way, you're just
yeah, like it's really bad.
Either
I think you have to edict and hope that like your opponent's spells are bad.
Yeah,
like you know that they have spells. We just have to hope that they're bad spells and get through it. We're gonna put the troll onto the forest that has the haven on it, and then probably gonna attack this Teferi because I think you don't have another choice. You don't really care if your Liliana gets attacked that much.
Yeah.
All right. Looks like we are going to attack the Teferi. We're going to exile a Kiora and the Llanowar Elves to go to 12 and point down to 20. And tagging Teferi. And I assume, based on the hand, I would probably just block. I just want more mana.
Yeah, more mana is good in this situation for sure.
Is he dead this turn? Not quite. We need another Wolful Haven for that. So it's daytime, correctly identified. So
forest here.
So we can lean on Cavalier to try to find the Nykthos before we storm, or we can just storm first. I think you're supposed to lean on Cav because Teferi makes 3 mana, so you can at least cast the Karn if you brick. But if you hit any land, you can cast Storm. And if you hit Nykthos, your opponent's probably going to lose the game.
Yeah.
All right, so we hit lands, and we have a forest in our hands. If we take forest, play forest, plus Teferi, we can still storm. I think that's the line we're probably going to go for, because I don't think there's a reason to get another white source here and take 2 damage.
That makes sense.
Our life total will start to matter at some point.
For sure.
Nice read of Cavalier of Thorns. I'm sure that it does, in fact, put the land in untapped, which it does for some reason. And then we're going to see plus Teferi, probably going to, for value tap the blood token and value tap the Blood Tithe Harvester and untap my land. There we go. Just how we drew it up. Gain another 2 life up to 22.
Yep. And we
And
get to see
then
a Karn here.
4, and we're not going to storm. We're just going to Karn.
Yep.
And I assume that means we're just going to get a Pithing Needle and Needle the Liliana, and then say go.
Seems like a good play to me.
Yeah, it seems like the best choice if we're to do that. Other options, we can get like a Reckoner Bankbuster, put it into play. But I assume he's just going to need a Liliana.
Yep, that's what we're seeing here. Looks like.
That's a Pithing Needle. Nice Double Masters 2022 borderless
Yes,
copy. Very pretty. And
I would agree.
I assume we will name Liliana the Veil because I don't see a reason to name anything else.
You want to name Blood Token?
Yeah, unfortunately, we cannot name that one.
Oh, that's
so not a legal choice. I have a report that life levels are actually 18 to 14, which I'm not 100% that's right, but we'll see.
Yeah,
I might have gotten confused on some of the trespasser rolls. So I believe it's 18 to 14 based on the information I'm getting here.
Yeah.
So that's our life totals. So we got one card. Presumably it's a spell because we're not thinking about looting it away right away. What spell saves you here? Sheldred, I don't think does anything because I think next turn your opponent is going to get a lot of looks at an Nixos to kill you. Kalitas is cool. Unfortunately, we did not needle Liliana. It looks, I guess that means we needled the Bloodtide Harvester.
That makes sense.
Okay, I guess he held the forest in his hand so that he could discard the Liliana. Okay, that makes more sense. It's an interesting choice. I would have thought that if I wanted to needle Bloodtide Harvester, I would have just plussed on the blood token. But it's okay. Draw an elf for turn. I think we're just going to open things up with a nice Storm the Festival. See if we can find this Nykthos to really close the game out. Should have sufficient devotion to do a loop with Karn. Don't know what the discussion is here. Oh, he's going to anticipate with the Fairy? Okay.
Like
I guess you look at more cards to find a Nykthos this way because you want a Nykthos before you storm in case you hit a second one. So he did find the Nykthos, which I think is going to be the game because I think now we can Karn for Chain Veil, activate Chain Veil, and then use Teferi to plus to untap the Chain Veil and the Nykthos and have enough floating to reactivate both of them, which gives us infinite Planeswalker activations and additionally infinite life, which after we don't currently have the black source, it's a Cauldron, but I believe that that's going to be not beatable from the position we're in.
I don't know what outs to infinite life there would be.
I mean, you can trade all of your opponent's cards down and deck them, but I think that he's going to end up with a lot of cards in his hand. Oh, he's going to get a Bank Buster that he's going to use Teferi untaps with the subsequent Teferi that has infinite activations. All right. Let me explain how this works to everybody. So the way the Chain Veil works, it modifies the rules of the game when you activate it so that planeswalkers you control can have their loyalty abilities activated at an additional time per Chain Veil activation. So when you eventually cast Restorative Burst, the backside of Pestilent Cauldron, to return planeswalkers from your graveyard to your hand to recast them, those planeswalkers also have as many activations as you have from the Chain Veil.
Oh, wow.
So when you eventually replay the Teferi, you can use the Teferi to draw with the Reckoner Bankbuster to find your black source to then cast the Cauldron and kill them.
Okay.
Which is very cool. I assume the line that getting executed. I mean, even if that wasn't specifically determined as illegal, I would probably concede if I was the black red player, we got to win game 3.
Yep.
Yeah, overall, I think like just a hand that flooded out a little bit, it seems like.
Yeah, just classic mid-range cards, right?
Yeah. Chaz drew the correct number of lines for the whole game, which is always an upside for sure. And I mean, those are the hands that I'm scared of, right? Like, if we didn't push on turn 1, it would have been really bad for us.
Oh, yeah.
And then it still didn't matter. Like, our hand was still really good from the green side of the table.
Yeah, I mean, being able to keep a one-lander like that, like, it just shows you the power of the stack.
For sure. I mean, like, that's definitely one of the better one-landers, but it's very scary because of that. Like, the range of keepable hands is like pretty insane against this thing, especially because of how the black red deck functions, you can keep hands that are just like put a bunch of old growth rolls into play and don't even threaten a combo because they're just really hard for your opponent to interact with profitably, depending on the subsets of cards in their hands. So Trespasser still being in, I'd be interested to know exactly how Adam sideboards in this matchup, because my intuition is that is one of the cards that is worse in this matchup. I know some players like it because it affects the graveyard, so it stops some of like recursive loops. It helps stops them from flashing back Storm the Festival sometimes. But it just doesn't attack very well past the creatures that your opponent's presenting to you.
And I think if you're worried about the graveyard being a problem, you have more efficient ways to answer it than that.
Yeah, I mean, like I said before, I've played similar black strategies before. I actually like building in this matchup because I would agree. Great, but like it's just a clean 2-for-1. It stops any of the shenanigans from happening. Like it's mana efficient.
Says discard 2 cards. And what do you want, right?
I mean, it's probably the best mind rot they've ever printed.
Yeah. Man, I can't talk today.
That's okay.
All right, so looks like we're going
game 3 here. Let's look at some opening hands.
Yeah.
Hopefully both players can keep them this time. That would be nice. Got some lands and spells. Adam's going to take a mulligan. Chaz is going to keep his hand.
So we have at least 1 land, Kiora.
Wolfwell Haven, Storm. Beseiju as a second land. No force for potential old growth trolls later, but that's less of a problem. We're still going to cast turn 2 Wolfwell into Kiora. And again, this is not normally a hand that you would keep playing the green deck. Normally, hands that just don't have 1-drops on 7 are universally mulligans. But because your opponent is playing an attrition-oriented strategy, when you mulligan to 6, you're already giving up a card out of your hand. So even though Chaz's hand is a little slow, we're going to play a turn 2 Wolfwell into a turn 3 Kiora. That's still more important to have all of those cards than it is to look for something more explosive by going to 6.
That makes sense.
And it's also tough because you can have such explosive starts, Adam's pressure to look for these hands that have cheap interaction on turn 1, because if he doesn't have interaction early in the game, he can get run over just like out the gate before he can get his game plan really rolling.
Yeah.
Looks like we're going to keep trying to decide which land we're putting back.
Possibly a pathway.
A pathway and a castle lock flame. So just tell my opponent it's a pathway.
Yep.
Okay. And then lead on lock flame. Nice. All right. And force off the top, another great draw, because now old growth trolls are alive to draw, and we don't necessarily have to play our Beseiju if we don't want to.
Yep. Although
there's not too many targets in this matchup. It's like Fable and Blood Tokens.
Yep.
Yeah, and we have a Wolfwell Haven on a forest. I believe that forest should be tapped, but I don't think it's going to get tapped for mana on our opponent's turn. And we have a Stomp putting Chaz down to 18.
We just tapped the wrong one.
We're good. Yeah.
Cool.
Haunted Ridge, Den of the Bugbear in play from Western, and a Fable of the Mirrorbreaker. Yeah, so I don't think it's going to get Beseiju because I think you want to do your stuff, but you might see Kiora untap and Beseiju your thing. We have a land to play. It's possible. Although we might play the Oath floating a green first to see if we can hit our land drop. That's what Chaz is thinking about right now. I guess we have our Temple Garden already, so we can just play our Temple Garden untapped if we want to do everything. The low cost of 2 life.
I would pay 2 life to do everything. So that seems cool.
The real risky thing about it is your opponent does get accelerated up additional mana. They did take a mulligan, so they might not have their 4th land. And if they do have their 4th land, it might be important that they have 5 mana. So we have Shock, second Wolfwell Haven, Kiora. We're going to probably untap this land that has the Wolfwell Haven on it. And then we're probably going to cast an Oath with green floating and then channel Beseiju. If I had this. See what this Oath finds. Karn, Forest, I believe an elf. Oh, it's a Cavalier. Whoa. I might be taking that one.
Yep.
Yeah, that's so scary. Now the Kiora has to die too because we're going to get another card out of it. And Adam doesn't know that Chaz just has a second Kiora in his hand. I think I channel the Beseju here. I don't think I want my opponent's hand is clearly like on the weaker side. They stomped me on turn 2 and then cast Fable on turn 3 and nothing on turn 1. So I think giving them the mana shouldn't be a huge deal, and it's much more important that they don't get the selection on the chapter 2 ability of discarding up to 2 cards and drawing 2 cards. So
I would agree with that.
But yeah, currently Kiora is going to live too, which is if Kiora lives, some bad things are going to happen next turn. And like I said, it ends up being not even that appealing because Chaz just has a second Kiora and is still going to get to go Kiora Cavalier next turn.
Fatal Push Urborg. I think
this is Urborg. All right, we're going to fire up the Den and we're going to kill the Kiora for all of our mana and get a Goblin, which is good, but that was on the board as a possibility. So Chaz knew this could happen.
Yeah.
And elected to channel the Beseju anyway. So I think that means we're going to see some good stuff this turn. Probably Kiora Cavalier fight, I guess. You should just see what order. Just Cavalier first.
Oh.
Huh. Okay. Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's a reason I wouldn't play the Kiora first.
Yeah, I don't know.
It seems like I just want to draw the extra card. It also gives me another look to find a land in case our top 5 doesn't have a land. We get our draw from Kiora to find our land drop. Because all we're looking for now is like Nykthos and we start going crazy.
For sure.
We'll see if it comes back. The upside is this turn there aren't a lot of great targets to remove because there's another Cavalier that got milled over from the first Cavalier. So just like killing it puts another Cavalier on top. Progresses very little damage.
Just the true resiliency of this green deck. It's
reminds me of Matter Reshaper, except way more broken.
You mean playable.
Depends on the form. Depends on what format we're talking about, of course. Bloodtide Harvester, Blood Token, and then we're going to see the Bone Crusher come off of his adventure to the battlefield. Not the strongest turn. We got a nice setup here. Potentially next turn, if Chaz doesn't do anything too crazy, Adam can get back control of the game, but we know his hand is pretty good.
Pretty good.
There's the 6th mana. See what he elects to do with it. You're gonna play your land? We're thinking about it. I think we're just gonna see Kiora. If I had to guess, I think we're gonna see Kiora untap Karn. Oh, we might just Storm. Storm is, I mean, it's it's so good. It's like if we just hit like any creature here that's like not an elf, I think the game will be like pretty hard to come back from. So yeah, Nykthos, an Old Growth Troll. No mana floating currently, and then you can also take an Oath of Nissa instead, although I imagine we'll take the Nykthos.
I would agree.
But a Troll and a Nykthos. Draw a card from our Kiora. Land for next turn with 8, 9, 10 devotion in play. I believe if all of these permanents are in play next turn, Chaz can win with Karn, a Karn loop. So that's fun.
Yeah.
It's gonna pass the turn. Adam's gonna need to find something to break this up. These attacks look pretty bad. I don't see a good way to.
They don't look the most favorable for it. For
yeah,
sure.
I don't see a good way to attack into what's happening. I mean, you can attack with the Bone Crusher and threaten to use the Bloodtide Harvester to kill the Cavalier if they block. But that's probably not where I would like to be in the grand scheme of the game.
For sure. Definitely would like my opponent to have less things with more than 4 toughness.
Yeah, I think the only card that would like correct the board here would be Extinction Event. You could Extinction Event on odd. You'd lose your Bone Crusher, but you keep all your tokens on Bloodtide Harvester, and then you could kill the Kiora, and then your opponent just has 7 mana and 2 cards. Only. Yeah. to keep going with the game. Looks like we're gonna play Fable and pass, and I think that's probably the game then. If
it's another Storm for turn.
the full remnants.
Oh.
That's tough. Yes, I believe that because there's a Kiora in the graveyard, this Karn loop should be lethal. Although we can also just storm first if we're worried about it. Looks like we're going to tap Nicholas, 4 green floating, cast a Storm the Festival. And Kiora. All right, we kind of bricked. It's the one thing about this deck that's tricky is you do have to think about what you can hit off of Storm and like what subset of your things you should do before you Storm. Like, should you activate Nykthos? Should you use your loyalty abilities of your Planeswalkers in case you had a second copy? So like that's a spot where if we had already floated mana with a Kiora, we could take on a second Kiora and made way more mana. But because we didn't do that, we have to take a Forest. I'm not saying it's right or wrong to not activate the Kiora or not, because there's a lot of
It just
complicated
proves the sequencing of this deck is way more.
Is very difficult.
It's very involved.
All right, so we're going to untap the Nykthos. We're going to reactivate the Nykthos from,
I guess there's a floating somewhere.
4 floating. Let's make 5 floating and then, okay, he's not going to tap that one. He's going to go 4 down to 2 up to 13. He's got 11 devotion now because he's got the extra pip. Yep. There's some sort of disagreement about what the devotion total is. Okay. I believe we have 13 mana floating. So I believe after we flash back the Storm here, which seems to be in the line Chaz is going to go for, that we should have 3 mana in the pool and probably 2 more permanents joining the battlefield. Oof, that's almost certainly lethal. That's a Teferi, and with the Karn in hand, that's probably the game. Teferi plussing to add loyalty and gain life means that you don't even have to loop restorative burst if you don't want to first to gain infinite life to mill them out. Very cool. We're going to draw a card from our Kiora. It's important. That's not a May. Not a May. Not a May. And then I assume we will cast this Karn and we'll get a Chain Veil, and then the game will
most certainly be.
It will most certainly.
It will have a distinct direction that it will be going from that point.
So we're going to tap the blood token. We're going to make sure Bone Crusher Giant's not going to deal 2 damage to us when we choose it as the target to tap. It will not. And then we will untap our Nykthos. That puts us up to 20 life when this resolves. I think if we don't have an instant speed removal spell to kill Teferi, this is probably the game.
Which
I don't believe there is one. I don't believe there's one on the list.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's not an instant speed way to kill Teferi here. So I think that's going to be the game if Chaz shows him the Karn. Second here. Thinking about if we want to rummage our blood token in response, which I guess we will because
why not?
We have to. We don't have a choice. So we're going to rummage a Fatal Push with our blood token. No, we're not going to do that. Yeah, we're going to let that resolve. And then gain select to 20, untap the Nykthos, and then we're going to spend 2 of our floating green. And we're going to cast a Karn with many manas floating.
Much mana.
I believe a 15 mana floating cast Karn. And we're probably going to activate this and get a Chain Veil, and then that will probably be the game. Yes. Yep. There's Chain Veil. So we're going to cast the Chain Veil going down to 11, activate the Chain Veil going down to 7, and then we can respond and push something. We're going to respond in Kolaghan's command to shatter the Chain Veil and probably kill the elf. Oh, he's going to shock the Karn and shatter the Chain Veil. Okay. This might buy him a turn.
Yeah.
Okay. And you can proceed.
This is what we were talking about with like the consideration of Braid was before.
Yep.
So Kolaghan's command performing the same kind of action.
Sure. So we still have 7. If I'm correct, we have 7 mana floating, and the Chain Veil activation is now going to resolve, and all the Planeswalkers will activate one more time. So Kiora is going to untap Nykthos to make us trillion more mana.
At least.
We're going to go from, I believe, 7 floating out to 5 up to 18, if I'm correct. I could be slightly wrong, or the players could also be incorrect about how much mana is currently floating. We're going to flash back another storm, going to 6 floating. And we found another Karn. And this Karn can activate twice. So this Karn could go get, for example, Tormod's Crypt to Tormod's Crypt herself, and then wish again for the Chain Veil that will now be in exile to then restart the loop. So I believe that's now the game.
This deck's so strong.
I believe that is going to be the game.
I wish I had a more eloquent way to put it, but deck's just strong.
Deck's very good. And the only possibility is that if Chaz doesn't know how Chain Veil works with the Planeswalkers, we could see some strange line where we do something else. But I believe the simplest line is to crypt yourself and then wish again with Karn and get the Chain Veil and then win. And yes, for those of you wondering at home, Karn specifically says outside of the game or exile, unlike old versions of the cards which specify outside of the game and no longer interact with the exile zone. Karn specifically says artifact you own outside of the game or in exile. So I believe the easiest way to win, like I said, is to get Tormod's Crypt yourself, and then go wish for the Chain Veil.
Karn is in fact built different.
Looks like there might be a small dispute over a current life total or something. I'm not exactly sure what the holdup is, but we'll see if he sees the line to crypt himself. Because some people don't know this, that this is a line, and it makes winning a lot more difficult. If you don't do this, we're gonna have to do some weird restorative burst nonsense with the Pestilent Cauldron, and that looks like we're live. I guess the game's not over because we missed that. We missed the nice technology. So we have a Pestilent Cauldron going to hand. Pestilent Cauldron has not a lot of text on the front side. On the back side, restorative burst, of course, saying green 3 sorcery, return a Planeswalker. Up to 2 Planeswalker, land, or creature cards from your graveyard to your hand. Both players gain 4 life, and most importantly for Karn, restorative verse exiles itself.
It does.
And once it's in the exile zone, it is a Pestilent Cauldron again that you can get with Karn. Very cool.
I feel like that's both fair and balanced.
Okay, so it looks like we're going to start doing a Pestilent Cauldron loop to gain a bunch of life, and then we have to find a black source to win. Okay. Because we can loop the Karn out of our. Do we have a card in our graveyard? I actually don't know if we do.
I believe we do, because remember they had also cast another card this turn, so there was one that was sacrificed.
Oh, that's right. We stormed into another Karn. So
yes.
The Karn was in place. And we have a Kiora already in the graveyard. So that loop alone, we already have 14 mana. It gives us infinite green and life with just Cauldron. Also, our Kiora can activate twice when we return it, so we don't even need that much devotion. And our Karn can activate twice, so we can end up putting our whole sideboard in our hand as we're doing this.
Yep.
But we'll see. We're going to go with a restorative burst for a Kiora and a Karn. Looks like we're explaining what we're doing with our actions.
Don't see a way to.
Is there a black source?
I don't.
There's a Caryatid, which doesn't have haste this turn, so I can't attack, can't use.
Yeah.
We have a Darksteel Citadel. It's not a black source.
I don't see anything.
Oh, our black source is the Reckoner Bankbuster, making the treasure.
Oh.
But we can't untap the Bankbuster with Teferi, but we can untap with the extra Kiora activation. So the 1 Chain Veil activation is enough. It looks like Chaz is going to win 2-1 over Adam here, showing us just why the green deck is the boogeyman of the format. I mean, that game 1 looked unwinnable, and then game 2 looked a little shaky, and then got under control. And this game looked just brutal to watch.
Oh yeah.